G'day legends, welcome back. Today we're in the shed, a little bit of a different one. So what we're going to be doing is just a bit of fabrication on some parts or part for the 800. We're going to do a radiator guard. You would have seen this in the bike breakdown video. It's just an aluminium radiator guard to replace the factory plastic one, which they're not too hardy. We had some issues with them while we're in the high country on one of our first trips on the channel. Ended up putting a rock through the radiator guard, punched a hole in one of the tubes, and then had to sit there on the side of the track fixing that. So never what you want, but we dealt with it. So to try and alleviate those kinds of issues in the future, I decided that it would be a good idea to try and knock one up that is a bit more hardy than the factory unit. So we've got a piece of aluminium loaded up in the CNC. Basically what we'll do is get this machine set up, do some engraving, put the logos in it, and then it will go to work cutting it all out. From there, we then bend it up, make it suit the shape of the radiator, weld a lip to the bottom of it, and it's pretty much done. It does seem like a fairly simple part, but there's a fair bit that goes into it, so I thought I'd just do a little video showing everything that does go into it. So I'll get everything set up and then I'll bring you back. All right, so we've got our piece of aluminium on the CNC. It's just held down with a couple of small screws, pulling it down to the wasteboard of the machine. This is just a piece of 5052 aluminium in 3mm thick. We've got the CNC set up. So what we'll do now basically is we'll zero the machine to the corner of the sheet. We'll touch off on our probe to tell the machine where it is as far as height goes, and then it can do some engraving. Once the engraving's done, we can then set it to work to cut the whole thing out. The whole cut process is about 45 minutes long, so it's definitely not a quick process. It spends a bit of time doing its thing. You'll see that it goes down in multiple passes and cuts everything out. So I'll get this set up with the engraving bit. We can zero the machine off and then we'll go from there. All right, what you see me do there is bring the machine over to the corner of the sheet, zero it on the X and Y axis on the corner of the sheet so it knows that this corner over here is as far as it'll go, as far as across and back and forward. And then we brought it over to where the engraving will be and zeroed the height of the machine where the actual engraving will be. Obviously the table, being that it's got a timber wasteboard, is going to have some variance in it, so I find if I just zero it to where the actual engraving is going to be, that it's not going to have any issues with how deep the engraving goes. The engraving actually only goes down to 0.2 of a millimeter deep. That's all it needs. So if it is out or it's zeroed in a place that's not the same as where the engraving is going to be, then I find that it either digs too deep or doesn't touch the sheet at all. So now that I've got that all set up, I'll chuck the camera back down here and we'll get a bit of a video of it doing the engraving. All right, as you would have just seen, it's just done the engraving for one side of the radiator guard. So now what we'll do is we'll set it up, engrave the other side, and then we can get it cutting. Well, there we go. Second side engraved, came out good. Now we'll get it all zeroed up again and set up with the cutting bit and fire up the compressor, get some air. That's what this little jigger is here, it blows air over the bit just to keep the bit cool. We don't use that when we do engraving, just because the engraving more needs some lubrication as opposed to air, whereas when we're using the cutting bit, it just uses air. So we'll get that set up and throw another time lapse in there of it cutting itself out. All right, there we go, all cut. That was 47 minutes in total. It's definitely a bit of a lengthy process, but the cut finish that the CNC gives, I think, outweighs any other cut method. The CNC itself actually cuts to within 0.01 of a millimeter, so extremely accurate. Our little bolt holes up here will be perfect to retain the factory bolts. You may not have seen it in the time lapse there, but in the final cut around the outside, it's actually programmed to leave little tabs here, and the purpose of those is once it's cut out on the outside, if it didn't have those tabs, the whole guard will try and shift and then can collide with the CNC, break the bit, and everyone's having a bad day. You can see it makes quite a mess. So what I'll do is I will clean the machine up, give it a good vacuum, get rid of all these chips. I'll take the sheet off the CNC, cut the guard free of the sheet, and then we'll bring you back. All right, there we go. It's now free from the sheet. So from here, what I'll do is I'll use a little chamfer tool that I have, runs on compressed air, and chamfer all of these holes. A little bit of a process, but the result in the end is worth it in my opinion. We can clean up the little leftover bits from the tabs, and then we'll get it bent up. We'll get the lip cut and prep it all for welding and get the two bits welded together. All right, well, we've got the guard itself now prepped and bent and ready for welding. So we'll fire up the TIG welder, get the two glued together, and then it's basically ready to go on the bike. All right, so we've got ourselves a little temporary welding table here. My shed is all over the joint at the moment due to the moving process and trying to get everything packed up and ready to go. So this is what we're working with today. We've wiped everything down with acetone just to get any of the schmutz off it from the CNC and engraving process. So from here, I'll get our bottom lip positioned where it needs to be. We'll get it all tacked off and then we'll weld it out incrementally. The reason we'll do that is being that everything's such small pieces of aluminium, it does suffer from overheating if I was to weld it all in one hit, which then produces a bit of a crappy looking weld. So we'll weld it off all incrementally and then it'll be ready to throw on the bike. And there we go, all welded off now. I had one little spot where it didn't really agree with me, but you get that. So we'll let it cool down and then we'll clean up that one little spot a little bit and then it will be ready to throw on the bike. All right, so I've reinstalled my factory radiator guard just for the purposes of the video so I can show you how to remove it and then we'll get on to installing the new aluminium radiator guard. So up under here we have 1, 2 Phillips head screws, and then up in the corners we have 1 and 2 Allen key bolts. So remove the 2 Allen key bolts and the 2 Phillips head screws and that factory guard will come out. Alright, now that that's been removed, we can move on to reinstalling the new aluminium radiator guard. It's just a matter of tucking it in behind your front mudguard and getting it in behind the radiator plastics, which is fairly simple. So we'll get that in now. Okay, so we've slipped the new aluminium radiator guard in there. So we will be using the 2 factory Allen key bolts that came out of the plastic factory guard, and the new aluminium radiator guards will be supplied with a couple of bolts to use on these bottom locations. So we'll get that all bolted up now. There it is, guys, all installed. It goes on fairly simply. It can be a little bit fiddly to get a spanner on these lower nuts, but once it's on there, it's on there. So you may have to push in the top corners when doing up the top bolts. There's a little bit of resistance. It's a little bit hard to see, but there is bits of foam stuck down the edges of either side of the guard, which just protects the guard from rubbing on the end tanks of your radiator. So push in a little bit. You can get the top bolts lined up and do them up first, and then come down to the bottom bolts. Get the bottom bolts in. They go in from underneath, nuts on top, and then do it all up nice and snug. There we go. Well guys, hopefully you all enjoyed that one. Something a little bit different for the channel, a little bit of fabrication, a little behind the scenes look at what it goes into fabricating something like this for the bikes. This one's actually off to a subscriber who's been following the channel since the start, so it'll be pretty cool to get some independent feedback on how it goes on his bike in some different riding conditions. We've got some trips coming up, looking forward to that. It's been too long between rides, so Can't wait to get back out on the bike, do a bit of bike camping. We're headed up around the Lacola area. I think we're going to head up to Mount Wellington. Some pretty specky views up there from what I've seen. I've actually not been up there myself before, so looking forward to that one. But that's it for me today. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully it wasn't too hard to watch. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.